Welcome to Mastering Your Monday podcast. And this is the show that talks about boundaries, work-life balance, and living a life where you have control. This is for highly driven professionals who want to develop a more balanced professional and personal life and live out their true values. Those who are ready to grab the reins and change the status quo. The professional who's ready to have a life again and who's ready to take a stand, living in a way that you feel respected, valued, and fulfilled each and every day. We talk about topics like setting boundaries, taking risks, life management, and all the tips, techniques, and strategies to help you master your Monday, one day at a time. Things are changing rapidly for many of us, especially this last year and a half. We've started to reevaluate our jobs and our careers and call into question how our careers actually fit into our lives or lifestyle that we want to cultivate. And as we all are getting older, our careers start to take a different shape. We might be looking to find a job that offers something a bit more fulfilling. We might be looking to re-energize our careers, whatever the reason. We're looking for this change and we need to have a plan. We want to make sure that our career choices are the right ones for both ourselves and our families. And that's because the choices we make will affect our future, whether we realize it at this time or not. By thinking about the future, we can make better decisions and not miss the opportunities that come our way. I love a great conversation, and this one is so on time. So pull up a chair, ringside that is, and let's talk the real deal today on episode 25, Changing Careers Later in Life. And guess what? I have a super surprise for you. This time I have a co-host. I'd like to introduce you to Marcia Baker of Mark of Success Career Services. That's MOS Career Services. Marcia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for having me. My name is Marcia Baker, and I am the Chief Motivational Officer at Mark of Success Career Services, where I help midlife job seekers bring their career vision to life. Whether it's getting a promotion, changing industries, or leaving the corporate world or government life to start a new business, I have been helping job seekers for the last 17 years bring their vision to life.
Wow, that is so awesome. And I'm thinking about that. And many of us, us old timers, we don't think about changing our careers that much. But I know the millennials and a lot of others, they're starting to change their careers more often. They're not even staying in jobs as much as 6 years now or something like that. So there's a whole different mindset right now, isn't there?
Yes, there is. In many cases, they're not staying at a job for more than 2 years.
Wow. I can imagine that. So what mind shift, what has to happen for us that are older that decide that, after the pandemic and everything, we're thinking like, I don't want to go back in the office or whatever the reason for the change, or we realize that, I really wasn't happy being in this job. What mindset shifts, what things have to happen to make us realize it's time to change?
Well, there are a few things. There can be internal factors and there can be external factors. So if you're looking at some of the internal factors, things that you should start taking notice of is things like if you're not being invited to meetings, if you're not being invited to the office chatter, you're just not getting the type of work that you feel is fulfilling.
Mm.
Those are things that you may be an indication that your job is getting ready to end, or you're not being thought of as highly as you should be. External things that you should consider would include, I would say, always keep your resume up to date because you never know when an opportunity may present itself. And there's nothing worse than having someone say, I know about the perfect job for you. You would just be absolutely perfect for it. The only thing is, I need your resume by the end of the day. And you haven't done or bothered to update your resume in over 10 years or 5 years, whatever the case may be, because, for the most part, you've been happy at your job, or, you thought things were going along well and there wouldn't be a need for it. So I like to encourage people to make sure they do keep their resume up to date, especially your accomplishments. People don't think about those accomplishments, the things that they've done that set them apart from other people doing the same type of work. I would also recommend people stay abreast of changes in the industry. What's in, what's out, what's trending, so that you can, be prepared for things that may be coming down the pipe.
So how often would you tell someone to update their resume? Because one of the things, there were two things that kind of hit my head right when you were saying that. Is one thought was every year, and another thought was whenever anything changes. So would it be one or the other, both, or can you tell us something even better? How often would we make that change?
You should, at the very least, be taking note of your accomplishments monthly, and that
Wow.
may not be realistic for someone, so no less than quarterly, because what happens is you tend to forget. And there's nothing worse than when you're under pressure. You find out your job is ending, you're being laid off, or you've been fired. And now you're trying to think of all of these great things that you did, and how dare they fire you anyway, or think about letting you go. I just
Right,
know I did
right.
something. What was it? So I recommend, keeping track of your accomplishments as often as you can. There's eh, no less than quarterly, but ideally monthly.
Wow.
And
I didn't think that.
yeah, and people tend not to think about their accomplishments. They they feel, well, I have my job description and that should be sufficient. And that's not enough. This is a very competitive society that we live in, and you always have to be looking at what you have done, what your contribution has been, and be able to articulate that on your resume.
Wow. So one of the things I thought about is, you talk about us being prepared for career opportunities, or things to achieve success. But, we know that for everyone, the word success is defined totally different. So when you're working with your clients, I'm really curious, when you're working with them, how do you help them determine or define what success is for them so that they could start working, or so they could start pinpointing or seeing those opportunities? What things do you have them looking for?
Well, I always recommend to people to think about what their ideal job would look like, what it is they really want to do. If they're unhappy where they are, what is it that needs to change? Is it the work? Is it them? Is it just the company, a different type of culture? So I really recommend that you just take some time to think about what that ideal job should look like. Where do you want to work? What type of company? Is it a large company, a smaller company? What type of culture does that particular employer offer? Do they have extra activities after work, or are there a friendly group? Do you just care about going to work and going home and you don't want to be bothered otherwise?
So
Um,
kind of like the difference between working at Google and UPS.
yeah.
It's
But
just that they're
people don't,
different cultures. They're different
right,
cultures. Yes.
right. And people don't think about those things ahead of time. um, the location, whether they want to work remote. Of course, everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people now after the pandemic think about, I don't want to have to make that commute every day. And some employers are opening up to that and some aren't. And there's maybe some compromise that you would be willing to make. Perhaps you could work from home 2 or 3 days out of the week, or out of a pay period, something, some type of give. And if the company is open to allowing that. So those are the three things that I would consider: what you want to do in your next position, the culture of the company that you want to work for, and the location.
Okay, so I'm going totally off subject just a bit because you said something that piqued my interest. So, are you finding that people are making some hard decisions now with the change over the last year and a half and being home, and especially in like the DC areas or the big metro areas where the commutes were a norm, and then you do a whole year and a half, and you realize I don't like this 2 hour commute, or I don't like this 4 hours. Some people are coming like from Delaware to DC,
Hmm.
or Richmond to DC, to Fort Belvoir or stuff like that. And so are you seeing that people are more inclined to, I guess you say, jump the ship?
Well, there are some who are considering it, because you know, while some people can't wait to get back to work, because if they have to stay one more day in the house with the people who live in their house, there are others who
Get
who
it, I
really,
get it, I get it.
you
No.
know,
But I love my
they
people here.
really, yeah. But there are others who really feel that they have more work-life balance because they're able to be there for their kids or their partners, and or they're able to do more things because they don't have that 2-hour commute. So in a lot of cases, they've gained maybe 2 to 4 hours a day back into their life, and they want to make use of it. So
So you
it
start
is a
I
consideration.
Yeah, so I was listening, and so you start realizing based on what you just said, people are realizing what really matters to them in life. And
Right.
so they're determined, or they're more inclined to make the sacrifices that they need to make in order to hold on to the things that really matter to them. And I think that's a great thing, me
Hmm.
personally. But yeah, you would have to weigh the consequences of changing that career, the consequences, like I said earlier, on your family. How does it affect your family? Are you going to lose money? If so, do you have the savings or whatever to help you during that process? So I guess there's so much to really filter through and work through. And so with that said, what are the steps to take so that you're never unprepared when a career opportunity presents itself? Because there are times when someone says, hey, there's a job opening, or there's something opening, and I know you used to do this, do you want to do this? Or you could be in a networking event or whatever, and someone tells you about something. So are there things that you can do ahead of time? Because girlfriend here, mastering your Monday is always about prep, have that strategy ready. So tell me, are there steps that we can take so we're never unprepared when a career opportunity is presented?
Sure. Again, I would say keep that resume updated. Make sure that it reflects the last 10 to 15 years of your work career. If you've been on your job for 20, 30 years, You don't need to put everything down that you did 20 and 30 years ago. In many cases, the technology has changed. The way that the work is done, it has changed. So you want to make sure that you only keep relevant information on there. And when you're not in the midst of thinking about where your next meal is going to come from, you can it gives you time to really think about what you want to do, what you want a prospective employer to know about you, and you want to make sure that the resume that you write is going to be relevant. There's no longer a one size fits all type of resume. The resume needs to be to reflect what you are bringing to that employer. So you want to focus on what they're looking for and what you're bringing to the table. So you keep those things in mind. Again, make sure you're keeping a track of your accomplishments, because especially when you're at the midlife age, there are things you have done and you want to be able to show that. And it needs to be reflected on your resume, because a prospective employee is going to look more at your accomplishments more so than what the laundry list of the job duties that you performed. So, and you want to be able to stand out. So always be thinking about how you can how you can show that on your resume, because your resume is a marketing tool. It shows up before you do for the interview. So you have to sell yourself twice, on the resume and then when you actually have the interview. If you don't sell yourself on the resume, guess what? You're not going to get to the interview.
Mm. That's good. So, boy, you just making all these questions pop in my mind. But you had said something about the changes in the internet and the technology and all that. And so that makes me think, okay, we're talking about people who have had a career for a while, a little older, probably 40s and up.
Mhm.
And not everybody is technology savvy. And so, but now if you want to put in for a job, I'm telling you, they tell you go online and put in for the job. And you're
Right.
just another number, another that some machine, some AI machine just does this tick, 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 and looks for keywords and all this stuff. So, how do you, one, how can you beat that system? And two, is that something that you're finding yourself having to reteach the technology side, or make a lot of your clients more familiar with how to deal with the new system in the new way?
Well, it is very important because AI is part of our lives right now, and applicant tracking systems are part of our lives. So, many times, what happens when you submit your resume to a job, it goes through that applicant tracking system, and it's used to weed out people. So if you are not addressing the requirements, if you're not using some of the language that was used in the resume and showing examples of how you have performed those types of tasks, then chances are your resume will not get to a human eye.
Mm.
And you could be the most qualified person for the job, but if your resume isn't showing that quickly, because you only have about 6 seconds to impress a hiring manager or recruiter. So if it's buried in there that, the skills that you have that would make you the most qualified person, they may never get to read it because they're just not going to take the time. So you want to make sure that your resume starts out with some kind of branding statement where you're showing what you're bringing to the table and how it's going to help that employer. You want to make sure that your resume, as I said earlier, only goes back 10 to 15 years. and make sure that information is relevant. So if you're going for a position in accounting, what you did as a clerk isn't that really going to matter, because they want to know what your experience is, what you're bringing to the table as an accountant. How did you save a company money? How uh, did you find discrepancies? Were you the person who always came in early, stayed late? You know, anything that sets you apart from other people.
Wow. Wow. That's real good. So with that said, what would you say are the top 3 things that a person should consider when they're thinking about making a job or a career change?
So if you are considering it, I would make sure for one that you are on sites like LinkedIn, because at the midlife level, and yeah, at that level, you really are depending on networking to help you get that next job. Um, so being on sites like LinkedIn is important, and that's where more than 90% of hiring managers and recruiters go when they're looking for new talent. So you want to
Mm.
make sure you have an updated profile on LinkedIn.
Wow. And do you help them with that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Okay. So what about the other 2?
Yes, I do. The other thing is, have an idea of what you want to do. Just don't send your resume out randomly. Have a focus. Look for the type of jobs that you want. Instead of sending out 100 resumes to any company that looks like it may have a job that you want, do some research on the type of companies that you want to work for, and
Mm.
then maybe look for people who you may know that work at that company, or someone that can introduce you to someone that works at that company. A lot of companies offer bonuses to their employees when they can refer someone to a job.
Oh,
But if they
wow.
don't know about you,
Mhm.
guess what? You're never going to get that opportunity. And then don't be afraid to explore different opportunities. You may find out that your company isn't paying you what you're worth, or, what you should be getting. So periodically, you should look and see what other companies are paying for the same
Mm.
type of work that you're doing. Make sure you're comparing apples to apples. You're working for a small company in the suburbs. You're not going to get paid the same thing as a large company in the city.
Right,
So,
right.
so you want to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples. And with those 3 things,
I think so, or
I
I'm
think
not sure
so.
if the last 2 were together or not, so that's why I was wondering, but no, I think they were separate. It was,
Yeah.
now don't ask me to say it back because I did not write them down, but your LinkedIn profile,
Yes.
and I remember check out the companies, do your research on the companies,
Network.
and don't compare apples to
Do
oranges.
compare. Right. Don't
Don't
compare
compare
apples
apples
to
to oranges
oranges.
or compare apples to apples. So
Right.
yeah, those are the 3 things. I think I got it. Oh, can you believe I remembered? It actually stayed in my brain. So that means you are good. I got this. So that's awesome. So I really enjoyed our conversation and the fact that you took the time out of your day to be with me here. So we could talk about something that can help our audience master their Monday. Part of mastering your life and doing life management is having all those things that make you fulfilled and puts you on purpose in your life. And so having the right career is so important. And never think you're too old. So I just watched something on TV. I got this last question. And I just watched something on TV, and it was about a lady. She was looking for a job, and she's around the age that you're talking about. And no one wanted to hire her. They were hiring younger people. Is that a TV fallacy, or is that something that is really happening? Are people who are older, are they having to fight harder, or are they being passed over for jobs nowadays?
Yes, it's called ageism, and it is a real thing. And it's something you have to be aware of, but it's not a reason to not try.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
The key is to make sure you are staying abreast of what's going on. A midlife worker has in a lot of ways has a different work ethic than a lot of the younger people, and
Oh
you
yeah.
do have something to bring to the table. Um, they tend to be more loyal to an employer, especially in these days when employers aren't being loyal to their employees, and um, and they have a lot of experience that can be useful. Now, if you go in there with the attitude that, well, I'm older, I know more, and that's why you should hire me, chances are you're not going to get very far with that. But
Right.
if you're willing to bring your expertise and also have a willingness to still learn, be open to learning more, learning new technology, new systems, that will go a long way as
Wow.
well.
Thank you. Thank you. I loved it. So tell us how we can reach you. You know, everyone when they're listening to this, they're like, I gotta call, she gotta update my LinkedIn. I gotta get my new what do you call it, resume together.
Right.
I gotta get so how do we reach you, Marcia?
For sure, I'd be glad to help anyone. I can be reached at MOS Career Services. That is my website. I'm also
MOScareerservices.com.
services.com,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay.
moscareerservices.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. It's Marcia A. Baker.
All right.
And also on Facebook, I have a business page on Facebook, MOS Career Services.
Awesome. So I'm glad that we can reach you on there, and I'm sure that you're posting little tips and stuff on your page on Facebook. So I look forward to seeing those. I am so glad that you were able to hang out with us today for our ringside chat. Now, wasn't it awesome? I learned a lot from Marcia today, and I hope you have too. Let me tell you, you are amazing. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe or follow, and so you will not miss a single episode. Are you ready to learn how to get a more fulfilling life? Well, this October, I say keep your ear out because I will be kicking off a Fix My Life weekend live intensive, and you don't want to miss that either. Don't forget, if you want to stay in the know of what I'm up to and grab a few goodies along the way, I have just the place for you to visit. That is masteringyourmonday.com/pathway. Let me know how I can serve you further. And that's the place to do it. Or put some stuff down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Remember, master every day like it's your Monday. Take care. Bye bye. I want to thank you for listening to the Mastering Your Monday podcast. I hope you learned at least one tip or technique you can walk away with and implement today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show, and let us know how much you enjoyed it and what you learned from this episode. We honor your time and your commitment to Mastering Your Monday podcast. And as always, we want to remind you, you are cherished, respected, valued, and in control. See you on the next episode.